The Good Dudes Grow 2.0.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Gary Roberts, Good Dudes Grow 2.0 here, back with you. I am excited today about today's show because I have somebody, probably one of my second biggest guests after, of course, Mr. Tommy Chong. But I've been trying, after I saw Shawn's video on the 21st about his experience with psychedelics, I says, me and him have to talk. We have to do a little conversation because first responders and veterans actually need access to this stuff. But before I get into that, for those of you who don't know, Shawn is a U.S. Navy SEAL, CIA contractor, also the founder and CEO of Vigilance Elite. And Shawn, I'd like to thank you for coming on my show.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, before we start, let's give a little bit about who Shawn is and a little bit about your background, if you don't mind.
All right. Where do you want me to start?
Just tell us a little bit how you got started in the. I know you started in the armed services when you were 18. What got you involved in that, first of all?
Okay. So leaving high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I definitely wasn't college material. At least I wasn't going to pass, anyways. But I didn't have a whole lot of direction. But something that always kind of sparked my interest was the military. And so I wanted to be a Marine. Back then it was Force Recon. They wouldn't take me. Then I went to the Army, wanted to be a Green Beret or a Ranger. They wouldn't take me. And the SEAL recruiter Navy recruiter stuck his head out the door and said, "Hey, you want to be a SEAL?" And I didn't even know what that was. And I was like, well, what's that? So he gave me a pamphlet. I went home, checked into it, and realized it was probably the best fit for what I wanted to do anyways. And went back, told him I wanted to sign up. He kind of laughed at me, and the rest is history. So, went in at 18, got to Buds, did all that. Showed up to SEAL Team 8 as a 20-year-old and couldn't even drink yet. Did a deployment and then wound up doing 6 years in the teams and then left. Actually went to a fire academy. Didn't work out that great for me. There was no job openings. So I had to leave the academy and wound up trying out for CIA for a contract there and wound up making it. Spent roughly just shy of 9 years working with them with a quick break, and in the middle of that I did some anti-piracy stuff off the coast of Africa. Well, and then I started this.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And a lot of people ask me all the time, they're like, why do you like interviewing or trying to get involved with interviewing veterans or military personnel? And I says, well, first responders and military are kind of like a parallel universe. They both go into something that they kind of know what they want to do, but unsure what they're going to get until, basically, excuse the expression, shit hits the fan. And then they're stuck in the middle of it. But it's also a family. Like, you guys and your SEAL teams, I'm pretty sure you're all very close. You all help each other. You're continuously working with each other. You're continuously training each other. It's the same thing with the fire department. The fire departments, for 20 years, you're with your brothers and sisters. And you know their families, their kids, their birthdays, their wives, their anniversaries. So that parallel universe kind of draws me to, like, we need to work together to get certain access to different types of stuff because we see pretty much the same bad things consistently. Yeah.
I always get a lot of firefighters and policemen, men and women, emailing in, about some of the stuff we talked about on the podcast, how they can relate to it. And a lot of them start off with, man, I haven't seen half the stuff you've seen. And I always correct them. And I'm like, no, that's bullshit. One, that's all relative. And two, we go out for 6 months, 3 to 6 months at a time. And then we come home and we don't see anything. You guys go out, sometimes every night. You're seeing things that happen in your own community that you have to drive by every day and revisit all that stuff. And so I would like to correct that narrative right here and say that you guys, see probably more, than we do on a more consistent basis. And so, yeah, I think that's important, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I feel that, you know, mental health in basically the armed services as well as first responders is huge. But before I get on that subject, I've got to ask something way off base. What's up with the gummies? I love gummies, and when I started looking at everything you're going through, I kept seeing these gummies pop up. I'm like, they're just like, there's something special about them. Is there? No, they're just supposedly some of the best tasting gummies. I've got to order some because me and my wife love gummies, and I was amazed that they're sitting right there in the middle of the page.
Yeah,
how'd you come up with that?
Well, when I was my business started as a tactical training company about 6 years ago now. And so when I was starting that, I was, you know, it was pretty competitive. There's a lot of guys getting out of the soft community, and that's where everybody goes, is tactical training when they're starting business. And so I looked at what everybody was doing, and I'm sure you can relate, but a lot of the guys in this outfit are, I mean, they're hard dudes, you know, they're scary, they're intimidating. All they post is protein shakes and chicken breasts and working out. And I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to make myself approachable. I like candy. So while everybody else is posting all this shit, I'm going to post candy. And it worked. And so later on, I was actually going to do CBD gummies for sleep, because I've always struggled with getting a good night's sleep. And that got kicked around, you know, the few people that work with me here. And one of them was like, don't do that. You're going to get sued for marketing to kids. And I was like, I can't even believe we're having this conversation. So I said, you know what, the hell with it. Let's just do regular gummy bears. I was like, it fits with my brand anyways, because I love candy and I love gummy bears. So we just did it, and it took off.
It drawed my attention. I'm just like, I thought immediately, like you said, I said, they got to be like CBD gummies or something. I'm like, there's got to be something. And I'm looking at the ingredients like, nope, they're just gummies. It's like, all right, I'm going to have to order myself some and try them, because me and my wife love the gummies, the Swedish fish kind of things, but also just the gummies they're so addictive, to be honest.
Yeah, they're good. But that's the backstory.
That's amazing. But back to the mental health issue. So you did a podcast. You told about your experience when you did psychedelics back on your podcast, which we're going to put a link in it, because it was a massive eye opener for me. I mean, so a little bit background about me. I don't know if you read up on me. I got involved in plant-based medicine because my daughter got addicted to opiates after a car accident, and she passed away exactly on the day she was born. So she came in on the January, and then the exact day she came in, she was taken away from us. So I went down this path of okay, we got to do something different with addiction. Let's find something, a way we can fix this, because the rehab facilities are just creating chaos. They're creating communities inside the addiction facilities instead of actually helping people to get out of the addiction facilities. And it led me down this path. I started a CBD company. I started giving some CBD to my fellow firefighters, and several firefighters started coming to me and telling me, dude, I don't know what you gave me, but I've been having like weird thoughts. I've been hating my family. I've been, just terrible, thinking about suicide and stuff. And all of a sudden, he says those voices started to go away when I started taking your CBD products. And I'm thinking, these are our type A personalities. We're not going to call the number on the line if we think something. We're going to keep it down, because that's what we do. Because exactly like the military, we need to be tough in front of everybody, and that's what we're going to do. But this stuff is opening people to come and tell us that they're having issues. And I'm like, well, something's involved in that. Led me down to the path of psychedelics. I decided, you know what? We need a special place for it. I'm opening a place up in Costa Rica where it's actually do treatment of psychedelics and cannabis, as well as teach physicians how to use the products, as well as do clinical research. So that's where I saw your podcast, and I went, all right, I need to talk to this guy, because, he went through the whole thing. My biggest question is, what made you think about going through that? Or how did you get down that path to where, I need to try this stuff?
Well, when I left the agency in 2015, I just was not in a good space at all. and I had no family around, and really I didn't have any friends around because they were all still deploying. I didn't know anybody where I lived at the time. And drinking got out of control, drugs got out of control, the bad kind, prescription and non-prescription. And I knew I was not going to be around for much longer, if I kept up like that. So I started going to a therapist, and I went to her for about 3.5 years, twice a week. And then I moved from South Florida to Tennessee, and things didn't get too bad again. But I missed the therapy. Business started kicking up more as I kind of did a new direction. They got stressful again. Then when I'm interviewing, a lot of my interviews are former colleagues of mine, and it brings up a lot of stuff from the past, And while I was interviewing these guys, I'd always struggled with sleep. I've always struggled with, I was on prescription meds. I weaned off a lot of them, but I was still taking sleep meds, still taking anti-anxiety meds, still taking Adderall to try to keep my mind focused, whatever, right? Same story. And that we all have. Well, in my interviews, I started hearing about guys that were doing the psychedelic stuff, and I had never heard about it. And first one I kind of blew off, like, all right, whatever. And then the next guy, talked about it was Eddie Gallagher. And I was like, all right, maybe there's something to this. Eddie's a SEAL as well. So I asked him to connect me with with the people that started the organization that sent them down there. So then I interviewed them. Then I interviewed the guy that showed them who it was. And I just started going down this rabbit hole as we're sharing combat stories and war stories and shit. Every guy, that I would bring on had something to do with, had been to the psychedelic treatment, whether it's out in the jungle in Peru or in a facility or wherever. And so finally I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this. And my life was starting to spiral out of control again. I had just had a kid, my only son, and I wasn't present in the moment. And I started getting a lot of anxiety again. So I made a call, and I was like, I've interviewed 5 or 6 guys that have been through this one way or another. And I really want to try it. I researched a lot of the science behind it as well on how it works and why it works. And I went down a skeptic, totally skeptical to it, and came out a completely different person. Or who I'm supposed to be, I guess I should say.
Right. That's the same thing with me. Interviewing a bunch of people, got down in a rabbit hole, started listening a little bit more, started doing a little more investigation, and I started saying, okay, there's something here that needs to be, brought out to the forefront of it, and needs to destigmatize on what it's about. Because, this stuff can help, but it's not just about the treatment. Am I correct? You did a treatment, but there's still work afterwards. Give us a little bit of experience. I don't want you to go through the whole thing because I'm going to post your experience on with this podcast, but give us a little bit about what you went in and how you felt when you came out, kind of.
Well, when I went in, I'll say this. It is a lot of work outside of it. The actual experience is, you're kind of just there for the ride. It's before and after the preparation that you do. So I talked to a coach or a therapist before I went down there to kind of understand what kind of mindset I needed. And they're really big on having an intention. You don't just go down there to see a bunch of pink elephants. You go down there with a purpose. And
right.
So they were really good sessions of why do you want to do this? What do you want to get out of it? Them helping you know what you want to get out of it, and bringing new ideas that maybe you hadn't thought about. And then you get down there, and it was a sweat lodge. It was still all, talking about your intentions. What do you want to get out of this? Why are you doing it? And and you talk about it, you write it down, you journal. Then you go through the experience. When you leave, there's another, they call it a reintegration period, where you talk with therapists again, and you kind of dissect your entire experience that you had. I did Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT, and you kind of dissect those experiences, think about what they meant to you, and they help you kind of understand what you saw, what it meant, where you go from now. And I think that some people that have, I think everybody gets something out of it, but the ones that really last, the experience, they call it a honeymoon phase, afterwards. And I think that for the people that, where the experience really lasts, and they're not just going back for the plant, every 3 months, they really take that honeymoon phase and they make changes in their life. They create new habits. Like, one of my new habits is meditation. I quit drinking. I didn't even go down there to quit drinking. Wasn't even on my radar. Just stop. I just didn't have any cravings for it anymore. Now it's been 6 months, and I stuck with it. And even coffee, caffeine, haven't had any caffeine, just some teas, but haven't had it. Anyways, I stuck with all this stuff, and I made it a habit in my life that I want to stay with. And I think that's the hardest part, is creating those new habits when you're done, and realizing, hey, I feel amazing right now. To be honest, I'd never felt that good in my life, I don't think, at least that I can remember. But I knew it was going to end. And so I spent that time, I put work off, I cleared my schedule, and I created the new habits that I want to stick. And when I do it again, which I will do it again, then I'll have new habits, that I want to add, and things that I want to get rid of too. But
yeah, see, that's the one big thing in creating the facility I have. I don't believe first responders or veterans in the military, or even people who are currently still serving, have to wait till they build all this up to have to go to someplace like this. For example, I always use the example of us firefighters. We get full body scans every year. We get, ultrasounds, we get poked, prodded, pinched fingers everywhere, just looking for some sort of cancerous lump or something, just so that we can have a healthier lifestyle later when we leave. But yet we do nothing from the head up.
Yeah.
And I'm the mentality that first responders and people in the military should basically maybe once a year have access to this, so that the thoughts and stuff that we see on a daily basis don't build up. Don't build to a total where we go down the path of, like you said, drinking or other drugs or everything else. We have this access to where we can actually do this in preventative. Like you said, you created new pathways. You created new ways that you're going to do things. You created basically almost a new life from the stuff that you learned. If we can prevent us from building all this up, I think it'll be a huge advantage in mental health later on for people like yourself in the military as well as first responders. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so too. I think this is really starting to take off. I just saw Aaron Rodgers came out and talked about his ayahuasca experience with Aubrey Marcus, and
yeah,
I think more and more influential humans are coming out saying, "Hey, I've been doing this and it's working. It's really working." And you don't hear anybody say anything bad about it, and it's changed my life. I'm a huge advocate for it. I always will be from here on out. And I think it's going to take guys like me and you out there, going against the grain, saying, "Hey, I don't know what all you've tried, but for me, it was, I've tried the pills, I've tried the therapy, I've tried all kinds of stuff, talking to friends, group therapies, all that shit." And I think a lot of it had benefit to me, but nothing was this profound. And so I think to get this more mainstream and more accepted, it's just going to keep taking guys like us, in every space I think this is going to start taking off in the NFL, you know, with all the brain injuries that they have, and probably in UFC and boxing. And I mean, Mike Tyson, he's come out, he does it all the time, you know, and this shit's helping people. It's helping a lot of people. Yeah. And, I know a ton of people that listen to my show have gone down there when I revealed the website and where I went. And because the guy hit me up and told me, hey, this is like, we're getting a huge influx. And I think people, I heard you mention just a second ago about, you know, people, a lot of guys, you know, that come from a background like we have with a lot of traumatic stuff, they wait until it's out of control. I did. I don't know if you did, but, you know, you don't have to wait till it's out. You can get ahead of this shit. And that goes for anybody, you know, all the trauma and stuff, it's all relative, you know, it doesn't matter what I saw or what you saw or what you didn't see. It's, if you're having problems and you think this is going to help, then go do it. You know, don't wait. Right. Don't wait until all this shit snowballs into a massive storm. Just get ahead of it. And I think that's what's really going to start saving people, is getting ahead of this.
And that's one big thing that I want everybody to understand. It's just not for like first responders or people in the military that went through this. There's people who've had traumas. You know, I had a friend who went down and did a MDMA session, and he had traumas when he was young that he didn't even realize. But when he was able to actually sort of self-diagnose it through this, he became a better person, and then his businesses started growing better, and then he started feeling better because he was doing more self-work. And I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of these medications, these compounds, no longer make us always external and worry about other people. We start working on ourselves and being more within ourselves, and the better us we can be, the better everybody else around us is. Yeah, I think that's what the medication does.
I'm 100% with you on that. I am. Perfectly said.
So, give us so it changed your life. What else has it actually done, basically around your I guess your group of family and everything else? Because that's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest things for first responders is basically we put all our feelings in a bucket. We don't take them out. We go home. Divorce rate, I'm pretty sure it's pretty high in the military too. But I know divorce rate in first responders is huge because empathy wise and feeling wise don't go down. How did you connect with the people afterwards when you did it? Because I'm trying not to pretend, but I'm trying to actually create a group therapy where the spouses or support group can actually go with the patient or the person that's going to do this, so they understand at the same time what you're going through while you're doing it. Therefore, that when you leave the facility, you go back home, you have the support group, because support is huge, especially for people who don't, technically believe in it. They're like, I don't know why you went down there, and you come back a completely different man. And they're like, well, what happened to the guy I married, kind of thing. Yeah. How did you get everybody back on board when you know you were going to be a little bit different? Did that just come naturally?
When I got back?
Yeah, when you got back after your session, because you started changing things, you started feeling good, Did people know you were going down there? Did you tell them that you were going down, and just came back, or did you tell them after you did it?
Well, I got a real small circle, so I don't. But yeah, I don't get out much. But my wife, had talked. My wife's very involved with the business, and the business is my podcast. And so while I'm up there interviewing my former colleagues and operator types, my wife's down talking to the wife, because a lot of these guys travel with their significant other. And so she was very aware, of what the process looks like when I get back home. With that being said, she was nervous, really nervous about me coming back. Am I still going to be in love? All this other, type stuff. Right. But man, when I got home, everything, it's like, but my whole life just like fell into place. There wasn't really much. I mean, there was a reintegration period for my wife too, because I'm a negative Nancy. I used to be pissed off all the time, politics, traffic, what you name it. If I'm gonna, if there's even a slight, if I'm gonna let everything piss me off, you know, and I'm gonna tell everybody how pissed I am. And I didn't have that when I got home. All my anger was gone. It's you know, some of it has come back. My anxiety's been gone. And what I noted in my being judgmental, I never realized how judgmental I was until after that experience. And, you know, I'm a negative Nancy. My wife is the complete opposite. She's like got a really bubbly personality, great at talking to people. You know, and what I noticed when I got back is how much my negativity rubbed off on her, because I noticed for the first time, I noticed she was judgmental and she got angrier quick. And I knew immediately when I was watching it, I was like, this shit is all because of me. That's why my wife acts like that, is because I was a fucking bad influence. And it only took about a week for her to kind of bounce back into her normal self. And my son noticed, you know, my son, I think he's 11 months old now. So he was about 5 or 6 months old when I got back. And he even acted different because I was more in the moment. I was more relaxed. He could feel the new energy coming out of me. And he would fall asleep on my shoulder. It's not like he was, you know, avoiding me or crying all the time. But I just noticed, like, he had never done that. He had never just nuzzled his head in and fallen asleep like that, just totally relaxed. And I started noticing that people were just a lot calmer around me. And do you know what I'm talking about? Did you experience?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And
so 100%.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that bothered me, it didn't bother me at all at first. Now, yeah, stuff starts bothering me again. It doesn't last forever for me. But I will say I'm a lot quicker to let things go. So if somebody cuts me off, if somebody screws me over, if I see something on the news that I don't like, which is all the news, but I'm quicker to let it go. You know, I'm not going to let it affect my entire day. I'm not going to let it affect my family life. You know, I still get enraged a little bit, but I'm real quick to go, all right, that's over. Let's move on. Let's get on with the day and get on with the positive stuff. And man, it's really changed a lot of things, you know, but those are the most profound things that it's changed.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. Listen, if my listeners and viewers wanted to actually follow you or listen to your podcast, where can they find it?
Just Google Shawn Ryan Show and it'll all pop up. Perfect.
What I'll do is I'll have the show notes in there. I'm actually going to have this, like I said, have the show of your whole psychedelic experience, because that was an incredible eye opener show. That was amazing. Man. I just can't talk about it. For 2 hours, it was just great. It was like I'm just sitting there and going in awe for the whole 2 hours. So
thank you.
Plus, if everybody wants gummies, I'm definitely putting that on. I'm definitely going to put an order in for some gummies. So I'm
right on.
I've got to try it.
Cool.
Shawn, I appreciate you coming on the show, taking time out of your day. And you know, if you ever need anything, or if, you know, I'm here. So
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Good Dudes Grow 2.0. Thank you for tuning in. If you're still listening to this, that means you gained something out of this episode. So make sure you share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of The Good Dudes Grow 2.0.